Welcome to our continuing series Questions and Answers from the works of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. Today's subject is Bliss, Part 1. From Sri Aurobindo, from the Taittiriya Upanishad. Now there is yet a second and inner self, which is other than this which is of knowledge, and it is fashioned out of bliss. And the self of bliss fills the self of knowledge. Now the bliss self is made in the image of a man, according as is the human image of the other, so is it made in the image of the man. Love is the head of him, joy is his right side, pleasure is his left side. Bliss is his spirit, which is the self of him. The eternal is his lower member, wherein he rests abidingly, whereof this is the scripture. In the beginning, all this universe was non-existent and unmanifest, from which this manifest existence was born. Itself created itself, none other created it. Therefore they say of it, the well and beautifully made. Lo, this that is well and beautifully made, verily, it is no other than the delight behind existence. When he has got him this delight, then it is that this creation becomes a thing of bliss. For who could labor to draw in the breath, or who could have strength to breathe it out, if there were not that bliss in the heaven of his heart, the ether within his being? It is he that is the fountain of bliss. For when the spirit that is within us finds the invisible, bodiless, undefinable, and unhoused eternal his refuge and firm foundation, then he has passed beyond the reach of fear. But when the spirit that is within us makes for himself even a little difference in the eternal, then he has fear. Yea, the eternal himself becomes a terror to such a knower who thinks not, whereof this is the scripture. Through the fear of him the wind blows, through the fear of him the sun rises, through the fear of him Indra and Agni and death hasten in their courses. Behold this exposition of the bliss to which ye shall hearken. Let there be a young man, excellent and lovely in his youth, a great student. Let him have fair manners, and a most firm heart and great strength of body, and let all this wide earth be full of wealth for his enjoying. That is the measure of bliss of one human being. Now 100 and 100-fold of the human measure of bliss is the one bliss of men that have become angels in the heaven. And this is the bliss of the Veda-wise, whose soul the blight of desire touches not. 100 and 100-fold of this measure of angelic bliss is one bliss of gods that are angels in heaven. And this is the bliss of the Veda-wise, whose soul the blight of desire touches not. 100 and 100-fold of this measure of divine angelic bliss is one bliss of the fathers, whose world of heaven is their world forever. And this is the bliss of the Veda-wise, whose soul the blight of desire touches not. 100 of this measure of bliss of the fathers, whose worlds are forever, is one bliss of the gods who are born as gods in heaven. And this is the bliss of the Veda-wise, whose soul the blight of desire touches not. 100 of this measure of bliss of the firstborn in heaven is one bliss of the gods of work who are gods. For by their strength of their deeds they depart and are gods in heaven. And this is the bliss of the Veda-wise, whose soul the blight of desire touches not. 100 of this measure of bliss of the gods of work is one bliss of the great gods who are gods forever, and this is the bliss of the Veda-wise, whose soul the blight of desire touches not. 100 of this measure of divine bliss is one bliss of Indra, the king in heaven, and this is the bliss of the Veda-wise, whose soul the blight of desire touches not. 100 of this measure of Indra's bliss is one bliss of Brihaspati, who taught the gods in heaven, and this is the bliss of the Veda-wise, whose soul the blight of desire touches not. 100 of this measure of Brihaspati's bliss is one bliss of Prajapati, the Almighty Father, and this is the bliss of the Veda-wise, whose soul the blight of desire touches not. 100 of this measure of Prajapati's bliss is one bliss of the Eternal Spirit, and this is the bliss of the Veda-wise, whose soul the blight of desire touches not. The Spirit who is here in a man, and the Spirit who is there in the Son, it is one Spirit, and there is no other. He who knows this, when he has gone away from this world, passes to this self, which is of food. He passes to this self, which is of prana. He passes to this self, which is of mind. He passes to this self, which is of knowledge. He passes to this self, which is of bliss, whereof this is the scripture.